Okay. I am calling this March 13th, 2023 regular meeting of the Manco RE6 Board to order. The time is 6 p.m. Heather, may we have roll
Chrissy's
call?
calling.
Okay, Chrissy, may we have roll call, please?
Sure. Pam Coppinger.
Excuse.
Pam is excused from the meeting today.
Okay. Victor Figueroa.
Here.
Emily Hutchinson Brown. Here. Katie Cahill Volpe here, and Tim Hunter.
Present.
Okay, would we please rise to salute the flag, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I would like to thank everyone for being here tonight. I just want to have a few reminders. If you have phones, please put it on mute so that it doesn't disrupt the meeting. And if you have anybody that you're talking with or side conversations with a neighbor, please take it out into the hallway so we can continue our meeting. Okay. With that, I would like to call the approval of agenda item on the agenda for this meeting.
Move we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
We have an approval of the agenda and we have a second. And we can we have a call, please?
Sure. Victor Figueroa.
Emily
Emily
Yes.
Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Katie Cahill Volpe. Aye. And Tim Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, so
And I move that we approve the minutes for February 13th regular meeting.
I can second that.
and that was 5-4. Approval of minutes for February 13th, 2023 regular meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
And you have a second. So it's on to Chrissy.
Victor
Chrissy.
Figueroa.
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Katie Cahill Volpe. Aye. And Tim Hunter.
Aye.
Okay, we have a second, we have a motion and a second, and it passes 4-0. Okay, public participation. We have 2 items. We have 2 times when we have public participation. I would like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the board in public rather than a meeting with the public. Okay, we have nothing. If you do have any comments that you'd like to make to the board, please sign up and put it down, put your name down, and we will address that. The next time we will address public participation is at the end of the meeting. That's where you can present any information that you want to present to the board at that time. Okay. We have item number 6, executive session.
Make the motion.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'd like to read the executive session. The executive session has to provide information to the issue. Executive session is a discussion of individual student where public disclosure would adversely affect the person or persons involved to ensure confidentiality of the student's information for the board to consider a parent grievance pursuant to the board policy KE and KE-R. I call we go into executive session.
All right, so executive session. When we go into executive session,
Okay, we are back in session. The time is 7:14. During executive session, there were no decisions made. And so the next agenda item on the regular session is District Accountability Report. Tico, I'd like to start off with you.
Come on, it's quick. I have a table.
It works good.
Yeah, that's actually nice.
Let's see, we had a meeting 3 weeks ago. MTSS was discussed and all the benefits that are coming out of Angela and Brandy's and the committee that are working on that. Seems really positive. And we're excited to see how we grow. In the next report y'all are given, I think next month. And so, if there's a recommendation, that is, kind of a tangent on this part. We recommend that when the school board has I guess that wasn't clear. For like the presentation that happened, when the school put something on like that on, that if it could be figured out how childcare could be provided, which this one it was. But if the school is wanting parent participation, if there's at all possibilities for childcare to be provided, it would be super helpful. And so we appreciate that happening at the last public meeting. We had a couple of other recommendations, but as we continued to talk about that, and thankfully Todd was there, we've come to a point where I think we're touching on what Tim stated last month, which is the DAC is meant to report also to principals. And I think we've made a cutoff there where Todd is going to be at our meetings. And so we have two different recommendation points, some to the school board, some to Todd. And so when it's going to procedural stuff, those recommendations will be given at the meeting to Todd. And then when Todd helps us deem whether or not it's board appropriate, we'll bring those recommendations to y'all. On that note, I would love to have a meeting between, I would recommend to have a meeting between Todd, Emily, and Tim on maybe better solidifying what the DAC, how the DAC should operate. Looking at the school board side, looking at the legal side from what Tim has shared with us, and somehow just better have a DAC defining DAC in a more solidified way.
Can you do that? It may be during, DAC doesn't necessarily have work sessions, but could you do it as part of like the beginning intro to a DAC meeting so that the conversation was whole? Or is this something you want to?
I would like
relay
to
back?
make some prep work first,
back to
and then we
them.
can go back to
Okay.
the DAC. And I would also assume that we kind of have this year already set
Right.
of what we're doing. And so anything we would discuss on how we're doing stuff would be implemented next.
23, 24.
Yes.
Do you want us to get together and come up with what we see as responsibilities? and
I would say
protocols?
us four, only because from what I also am reading in the definitions, having the DAC president and school board members and the superintendent, since that will be the admin that we're talking to,
Mhm.
us four looking and helping dissect how we can better do that.
Back in the day, Brian Hansen actually helped me tremendously and had a roadmap developed. And I have that roadmap. So that would probably be very helpful because we are a unique being, since like to your point, we don't have individual school DACs. So, I mean, I'd be happy to share that. And then Tim has the legality and we can pull in the pieces that make sense to
Yeah.
our district.
And kind of with MTSS happening during that meeting, it just got me thinking of like, let's MTSS DAC. Like, let's make this system to where when I leave and other people come in and other committee members come in, DAC can function the way that best
Yeah.
helps our district.
Cool.
And then on another note, there was a thank you or like a kudos for the work that Todd is doing and the work y'all are wanting from DAC, of how DAC has transitioned from being more than or no longer just a PR firm for the school district. Doesn't feel like it's like DAC, y'all go put out the information and make us look good. It seems like a teamwork going on, and the DAC appreciates that.
Just hold your horses. There's more work coming.
More work coming. We're excited.
So much work coming.
That is my report.
All right, thank you, Tico.
Thank you.
Do you have any additional questions for Tico or? Okay, thank you, Tico. All right, our next item are board reports. We have Mr. Figueroa's Casby. I just have a few items, really.
Just third person to yourself.
Yeah,
That was
I know.
awesome.
Okay, so in Casby, we have a task force that are really reviewing bylaws. That was asked for in our last delegation meeting in December 1st. And really why they asked for that was that the task force was asked to create and examine the bylaws, gather feedback from membership, and propose possible changes to the bylaws. And so I think that everyone on the board had received information about this through email. And so if you have anything you'd like to give to this committee to look at, there's a process that they explain in the email and on the website. And then lastly, school board election resources. Casby is doing a really good job putting resources out there for school boards. And so they're interested in knowing that the next election, there's going to be, again, numerous school board members who will be running, not just in our district, but across the state. Their interest is to make sure that there's resources for us as a board and for the public, because some of these things are, they can go right onto the website and look them up. And so the things that they are providing as far as materials is what does a board member do, becoming a candidate, recruiting candidates, resources, frequently asked questions, things like that. So as you go around the community and you find that there are individuals interested, you might refer them to this website. I know we're going to have a packet soon that's going to be for possible new board members that we can give some information about our process and what we are doing here in Mancos.
I wonder if it behooves us to pull some of that out and print it when they get the application or something of that nature. I know, you can just download some PDFs from Casby and give it to folks who are going to get not the application, but what's the word I'm looking for?
The thing, the signature thing.
Yeah.
The
Petition.
Petition. Yeah, oh, good gravy. That, and that might be, it might be nice for us as to disseminate that information in writing to
And
folks.
Tangentially, that, what is our time frame on our board handbook that we've been working on? I've lost track of the time.
Well, you and him need to get together and hash out the norms. You guys are next. And then I pull it together.
So you're
Give us-
final, we're waiting on you.
Yeah,
Didn't I hand that out already?
Okay.
but you and Pam are doing it together. Not at 2 AM. When you were like.
I think you were gonna have a meeting and agree on all of it.
I'm
And
fine,
then
that's
roll
fine.
it in.
That's why I was asking that, because
Well, you're a team, so get with Pam. And then once you finalize that, and
Pam
then
needs
I
to
will
say yes.
collate it all, and it was really March, I believe, was the month. And so we'll push that to April.
But getting to Ms. Opie's question, maybe we can maybe we can print up some of this stuff and just have it as additional information for possible.
You know, when they get
candidates.
their election packet from the school,
Mhm.
they should have some of that stuff right there.
Sure. Okay,
It would be helpful.
And give them, at least give them the CASB website and stuff where that's located, if not some of the actual printouts.
Okay, I can do that. How about I pull that and at least pull documents that I think are like the most reasonable.
In the essence of the trees, it might also behoove us to like put it into one email, forward it to Heather and say, Heather, whoever picks up the packet, forward
Forward
this
this to
email
them.
to them.
Fair enough.
Because they're all gonna have an email and then
Yeah.
they might even choose to dig a little further and find more.
Yeah.
And then we're not trying to pick
Some of
what we
it-
print.
Yeah, some of it's login.
Right.
You have to have a
Right,
login credentials. I think a lot of it. So we'll just have to maybe just PDF a lot of it
Yeah.
and then we can forward it on.
attach it.
Sure.
Okay,
I like
I will
that
do
idea.
that.
okay. Any other questions? Okay, so that's my report. This hope you, what those these.
so I sent everyone a report. It was in the latest incarnation of the packet in the interest of time. Do you guys have any questions? If you read it, I could go through. It's just very interesting. I think the part that I found for the board, the most interesting is, well, two things, is that CASB is currently doing a very robust evaluation of their pay scale. And that's gonna start adding up. It really is it's a state of affairs, really. A lot of the positions, BOCES positions, are requiring even a larger amount of education, but a more involved level of education. A lot of positions are moving up to doctorate positions, and therefore pay scale is going to have to be accommodated. I know, and
My question is that a necessary function to have a doctorate? I mean,
ultimately, I get your question, but I think that would be advocacy to our representatives on the federal level, which is something I brought up as next on the BOCES agenda for next time, is that, are we doing any advocacy at the federal level to address some of these financial concerns? Because the classic unfunded mandate question is that, ultimately the school districts, all the school districts within the BOCES are going to be getting the bill. These are federal monies. We'll need to really press that button. So I asked Royce to come up with a plan on how San Juan BOCES is looking to advocate with our federal representatives and how we can do that, and maybe get us a plan as well.
Okay.
Yeah, did that answer your question in a very roundabout way?
and then one other,
Yes.
just a curiosity, is there talk about among the BOCES about Cortez and their
Departure.
abandoning BOCES? Or is that just still, it's so far away that it's not part of the?
It's in the,
It's in here. Let me pull up from the ed report. I think what is happening is, I believe San Juan BOCES is trying to address the concerns that the Montezuma Cortez School District has on a superintendent level, but also on a board level. Hence, you'll see that Royce is really doing a lot doing a lot of education to the board. And then there is, San Juan BOCES employees will also be doing more to help folks understand what costs. As far as what they're doing, I don't think it's a long process, so I don't know if they have made the filing or started the filing to the CDE I think that has not yet happened. So I did ask if the San Juan BOCES board could, if there is a place for comment on that because of the financial impact that it would have on all of our districts. And that is one element that the Department of Education will look at, is the impact financially on, and then also services. Are there enough service providers in our region? And they take that in account when they're looking at whether one can step away from the BOCES. Are there enough service providers? And that's a
And
big
that's what happened
concern.
when Durango left. Several of the people who were working for BOCES
Right.
went to work with Durango, and they had problems filling those
Right.
positions.
Right.
Correct. And in fact, they are our biggest competitor for services and employees. And so all of that will be taken in consideration. So,
I had a couple of questions. I'm sorry, go
no,
ahead.
please.
So as we know right now, it's moving forward through this evaluation of the budget. Would you say? Or
Oh, the evaluation of the
like the
of the
overall
pay
budget?
scale?
Well, no, you mentioned that that Cortez is looking at their overall budget to determine.
I see, yeah.
Is that Cortez doing that? Is that CDE?
No, that's all internal with Cortez right now. They haven't filed anything with the state.
They have not.
Okay,
And Mr. Cordery might have a little bit more insight from his superintendent meetings that maybe didn't spill over into the board meetings.
No, I think that's right where it's at,
Okay.
right where you said is right where it's at. There's still a sense of, they're unsettled there.
Yeah.
I grilled their superintendent the other night personally.
I had a couple questions, Katie.
Yeah.
Or maybe comments. The staff survey that you, that was mentioned in your
Mhm.
report, is there a way, my first thought was, can we get a hold of that data to give it to our recruitment and retention folks on it is like in a summary form, or at least give it to Mr. Cordray so that we, because I think staff voices, whether they come from our district or any district, in terms of what they're looking for is relevant. And if they've done the survey, can we get our hands on the survey? Because those are relevant educators in our area.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Royce is usually very open and accommodating, so I think she would be happy to, that I'll make a note of that.
There was some great commentary there, including culture being highly valued. It's like, yes. And then can you tell me or educate me on what a SWAP coordinator is? I don't understand the acronym.
Yeah,
And then you were gonna talk to Todd, so.
yeah, and I feel like that point was a little bit more stream of consciousness.
I just don't know what it
asked
is.
him, and then I can't remember what you said to
So
me.
it's for our students that have IEPs, and it's the School to Work Alliance program.
Okay.
So it's the transition program for students that have IEPs to get them into a work environment following high school.
And I think you and I discussed, we didn't know necessarily whether any students within our district were currently using that.
Right, and and it's typically reserved for students that are of a higher need, that need that kind of that direct handoff
Yeah.
to a specialized work environment.
Okay,
Yeah, but it would be embedded in an IEP,
Mhm.
correct?
got it.
So that's, okay, so that helps flesh out my own understanding.
I just didn't even understand the acronym.
Yeah, sorry, I
Acronym.
should have.
No, it's okay.
Spelled that out. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Mhm.
okay. If there isn't any more questions, we'll move on to item 10, discussion items.
No,
We have a superintendent's.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Build a little disc.
We can't-
Todd's like, yes.
Sorry, reports from administrators, superintendent report.
So in your packets are three good reports from the school level leaders, and those are information that they also share with their staff and share out on their newsletters with their parents. The second thing I'd like to mention is that the retention recruitment and compensation committee that the board has charged my office with. We're doing a Facebook Live presentation that will then live on Facebook, so that for people who couldn't make it to the public meeting, we did have a public meeting about a week ago, and we had 40 people there.
Wow.
Mr. Figueroa was there.
Yeah.
It was a very good turnout, really dynamic conversation, and really just a clear understanding that this is a community problem that needs to be addressed. So that was extremely positive. So as I mentioned, the next one is Wednesday, and that'll be Facebook Live, and we'll capture it, we'll record it so that people can see the presentation that can't make it to that. And then the launch of the retention, recruitment, and compensation is now tentatively scheduled for April 6th. That would be the Thursday, 2 weeks after we get back from spring break, to launch that with the community and the 6 subcommittees. Any questions on that before I move on?
I would just add, I thought it was a great meeting. Parents had a lot of good questions, a lot of clarity questions, and they definitely see the urgency as we do. You know, we don't really have answers yet. That's part of the committee work, but certainly there's an urgency that I felt.
And then the next thing is we, KSJD and the Cortez Journal they continue to be interested in our school district. So they continue to reach out to me for information about our school district. And so I'm happy to communicate with them. I appreciate their journalism. The next thing I just wanted to mention was the school board linkage is coming up. The next round of school board linkage is coming up with Mr. Figueroa, and he'll be meeting with 10 high schoolers that are a cross representation of the high school population on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. And then on Wednesday, between 1 to 1:30, all the high school students that are on campus will be receiving a survey to fill out so that they have an opportunity to express to the Board of Education how their high school experience is meeting or is not meeting their needs. So I find that to be a great opportunity for high schoolers to really express their feelings about the school district. And I commend the Board of Education for seeking feedback from the people that are most affected by the educational product that we put forth.
If I might add something to that, one of the things, and I know I've discussed it before, but ultimately I'd love to see some sort of leadership piece or consistent communication, whatever that looks like. And I would really encourage the student to let us know what that looks like, instead of us having some sort of vision of how they want to communicate. Let them make those decisions, but in some capacity. And I will say also, I recently had an experience where I was looking at the National Honor Society questionnaire, and leadership is a really important piece in there. So if we can give kids more leadership opportunities in all sorts of arenas. I think it's traditionally thought of as STUPA, but that doesn't fit a lot of kids. And if we're thinking about being student-centered, I'd like to look at all of kind of the breadth of what that might look like. So that's just a comment that kind of dovetails, tangential, if you will. But I think it's important for us to help them explore those leadership opportunities.
And maybe even spark conversation or idea through, we've considered a student at the board table. We've considered a student at our board, CASB board meetings. We've considered, but again, you don't know if you don't know, right? So also, I wanted to mention, to dovetail to that, the town meeting for linkage was postponed due to the snow day. we had like a severe storm on the
Yeah.
day that it was scheduled, so the town and the school decided to postpone, and I believe that's on April
22nd.
22nd.
12th or 22nd? I think 12th is right.
Hold on, I'll confirm.
Okay,
So that has been, it is happening, but it is postponed to, it is April 12th at, I believe 6 PM at the town hall. So,
And then the one with the Chamber of Commerce is on the 18th. We're doing that on the 18th of May.
Nice. Good job.
anything else before I go on? Okay. The next thing is, in meeting with our Director of Safety and Security, he has his Safety and Security Community Advisory Committee coming together nicely. He has a cross-section of 20 individuals that have showed interest in providing feedback to him so that as he develops his standard operating procedures and also addresses the issues that, such as the school resource officer, that's going to take a lot of input from a lot of different folks, he'll be able to get some really good advice. I suspect that that first advisory committee will be happening in the next 3 weeks. He was just in the process of getting the invitations put together when we spoke about it last week. The next item that I have for us to touch base is next week is spring break, so we are off for the following week. I think that's probably something that students and teachers and parents are looking forward to and ready to enjoy. And then the last thing is just I wanted to just set up Chrissy nicely. So as we go into the finance report next, is that she's already up to either her waist or her neck in budget for next year. So there's been a lot of discussions around budget for next year. And that's my report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Okay, we have finance report. Chrissy?
As Todd said, that's all we've been doing is budget, 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 and of course, we're working on salaries. Trying to figure out how to make that the best we can, so that's priority one. And so I have a few scenarios I'm working at now, and we're just gonna try to put every resource we can into that. The last governor's request that I have, it shows that our PPOR will be up by about $1,000 per student. So that'll be nice if that sticks. I mean, it's a long way to go till that's a final number, but that's what I'm building our budget on currently. So we'll see where that can take us, and hopefully all that money can be right into that salary schedule.
Can you refresh my memory at where we're at now with it?
Yeah, right here. So right now, our per pupil is $10,692.
Okay.
And it is looking at right now to be $11,744.
Okay.
So hopefully it'll stick or get better, but at least if it'll hold there, that would be really, a really nice number. So that's kind of what I'm building budget on right now. And I asked Todd earlier if I could get on your board in May when you guys meet at your meeting prior
Work
to the board
session?
meeting. Yeah, the work session. And have a segment of time so I can get in there and kind of get in depth with you guys on how the budget's coming along, since we'll have to approve that preliminary by May 31st. So I thought if we did that at the beginning of May, that would be great. And contracts have to go out in May anyway. So that way you guys are in the loop as to where we are with all of that. So I'm gonna work really hard between now and then to see
When-
where we're at.
Yeah, when typically do the contracts go out?
By the 24th or 25th,
Of
right
May?
before they leave. We
Okay,
try to hand them out usually actually on that last day or that last week, if I can get them
Yes.
done before they leave, because we like them turned in if we
Yeah.
can before they leave campus.
so just a question, like, for reference, since I'm not sure of the historical perspective.
Mhm.
Is that the reason that you do that? Because you'd like them to be turned in, so you know, okay, these are the staff members
Mhm.
that we have solidified, and then obviously there's gaps in hiring that has to occur over summer.
Yes.
And so are there contracts that are not turned in?
We've had that happen, yes. But people, there's a deadline on the contract, you have so many days to return it,
Okay,
so they have to abide by that timeframe.
okay.
But we try to give them out then, just so it's just easier for them to, most people sign and turn it in, so they don't have to think about it again. But there's a few that are looking, and you just have to kind of wait and see what happens.
And so when they don't turn the contract in by the deadline, is that essentially a freedom for the district to then go out and look for someone to fill that gap? Or do you go back, or do you take that on a case by case basis? What's
mean,
the standard?
If I don't have a contract by the deadline, we reach out to that person and say, did you forget? Because
Mhm.
sometimes people
Did you
forget,
lose it?
they
Right.
lost it, something, it's
Dog
just
ate it.
very simple. And then other times they're just honest and say, I'm looking for these reasons.
Okay,
and
good.
And we just kind of work with them and see what's going on.
Clear communication. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So really, that's it. I don't have really anything else to tell you guys other than we're working with a little more money, hopefully, and we'll see what we can do for salaries.
I wanted to point one thing out on the bills this month, as we're all gonna approve them. And this is the kind of stuff that, as the treasurer, I like to ask about, take notice of, and share at times, and that is for those of us that may have kiddos in the middle and secondary, and read our newsletters, we see that the administration and district has a consistent, or has had some consistent issues with vaping on campus. And we don't always see that in our elementary schools. Obviously, you're not gonna be privy to that as an elementary parent, but I think it is called for to relay that the school district this month spent $4,500 on a wireless vape sensing unit, which is absolutely, in my opinion, necessary.
We've got 4 of them.
Okay,
4 units.
so
For
4
that amount.
units
Yeah, for that.
for that
For that
amount
amount.
to help us secure and hope that our school and our students are safe. And one of the reasons that I like to call that out is not only because I commend this, that the school's actually taking those precautions and going those extra steps. But, there's reasons that they're having to spend that money on those exercises, rather than textbooks or other things that might need to be purchased. So when we start talking about per pupil funding and how we're splitting up this money and where it goes, that's part of the pocket that goes somewhere else. And there's nothing we can do about it other than, I don't know, change the culture of our country. But it is a challenge, and it is a challenge that we are faced with and that we are spending money on. And although I hate that, I'm also glad at the same time that we're doing it, but it's also sad that we're doing it.
Anybody have any other questions for Chrissy?
Thank you.
Okay, we're on item number 10, discussion item, district goals. Before I turn it over to Mrs. Hutchison Brown, I just want to say, as a board, we went through a very meaningful process to develop these goals. We then met with staff district-wide to share these goals. That was a really good process for us to hear from our staff. They had an opportunity to ask questions and give us amazing feedback. So as a result of those meetings and our discussions, I'd like Ms. Hutchison Brown to give us some information about where we are.
Okay, so one, you stole my thunder. Thanks, Victor. No, I will reiterate what you said. And I will say it out loud, as I said it to the board and Mr. Cordray. I was extremely pleased with the staff participation, the staff turnout, and the way that our time together was spent on that professional development day a couple Fridays ago, or maybe it was last Friday, and I've lost all track of time. In any event, was really good to see everybody from across the campus come into one space and be participating, happy to do so, and engaged and have quite a bit to share. That being said, from the information that we were given, whether through discussion, written feedback, or even feedback after, we did it was shared with the entire board. We've read it, all of it, and we did adjust slightly some of our goals. We did not have, the initial goals we had put together, we did not have any egregious pushback on. Everybody seemed to kind of understand where we were headed and the why. Because the district goals, and now I'm gonna just kind of read or paraphrase from the document, they aim to provide the community, parents and guardians, the board and the staff with broad annual goals. The district has a culture of improvement through a growth mindset, and I think that is often demonstrated not through just the teaching, the staff, the board work, the strategic plan. We're all trying to build better kiddos, right? Build a better district for all. And so we measured out, or we laid out some academic goals related or surrounding instruction and achievement, culture and human resources, management and board relations, and community relations, and have driven down to some language that makes sense for all. We tried to refer back to the strat plan in some of that language so that we could kind of keep on target or on task with how that changes or adjusts year after year. Much of it does tie to the strategic plan. And so that was shared with the board. I won't read it out loud, but I do believe that we've settled through much effort on a set of district goals that we can start with, see where we land, and then adjust next year and then go forward from there. This set of goals is meant to move with the district, not be reevaluated or revamped every year. It's meant to move with this district. Sure, there might be times where we have to take something off the board or completely readjust, but it's meant to flow. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Cordray?
Yeah, just a question really for the board to make sure that I understand the process well also is, so we have an updated draft based on the board's original work and my original work, and then the input from staff. And so we have a really strong updated draft. And it's my understanding now that this will be shared with the public to see if there's any input from the public. And then the board will come back in April and then formally adopt the district goals for school year 23-24.
Perfect.
Is that correct?
Yes,
So this will be
sorry.
for next year.
Right, correct.
Well, and just, kudos to the board for doing this important work and for outlining, goals, and to having a mindset that there's always room for improvement. I feel like this is a very strong step in a very positive direction for the school district.
Sorry. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to discussion item B, adjustment to the calendar for snow days. Mr. Cordray, would you like to start that?
Yes, please. Under action items, I'm seeking a motion to have permission to adjust this current year's school year calendar to add additional days if needed for emergencies or snow days, whatever, may be the situation for us. As it stands right now, we have one snow day and 1 2-hour delay in the bank, so to speak. But if we were to need additional snow days, we reached out to staff and we reached out to parents in their survey, and we received well over 120 responses.
Wow.
And a lot of feedback on if we did have to add days, what would be the days we would add? And also from staff and from parents, what their feedback was on snow days. And so we heard a variety of things on the feedback. The strongest message we heard was safety is paramount, and safety, and there was the strongest sense was that snow days were appropriate and that their importance. We did have some comments on the other side of that coin too, that said, that we needed to persevere and have fewer snow days. So both sides of that perspective were reflected. And we also had feedback that asked us to consider to have virtual days instead of a snow day, where it was a digital day for students to receive assignments digitally. And there were a few of those comments. And so that's something for us to consider. And then there were some comments that if we had a snow day on a Tuesday, the most appropriate day to make up that day would be that Friday. So it would just be an automatic thing.
A rollover.
That's straight to that Friday. And so all those are really important feedback for administration to consider as we go forward. But it was really helpful. The one place where we saw really strong consistency was in which days to be added. So in the board packet, there were 5 days that were proposed: March 31st, April 7th, April 21st, May 5th, and May 19th. And the staff and parents were able to rank those days. If we had to add days, which days would we add? And so what they both said very clearly is the sooner the better. So in the motion, I would like to get permission that if necessary, that I'm able to add the days in the order reflected by this survey, according to what day the date it is most appropriate, according to the date of the calendar that we might need such day. Any questions on that?
I would make a motion that we add action item H to grant Mr. Cordray the purview to add additional snow days and or delays.
We have it in there as action item E already.
Oh, is it? I thought you had to add it.
Yes,
No.
Oh, okay.
that's
Oh, it's in there as
So you
action
just
item.
want our
Yes.
approval of it.
Right.
Oh, I
Yes.
thought you said to add
No,
another
I'm
action.
sorry.
I have no issue with it, and I agree. I think Fridays make the most sense. And I'm sure for the teachers, it makes more sense to back it up as early as possible, so the kids
Yeah,
are,
you keep
getting what they
consistency,
need.
yeah.
right?
Yeah, Mr. Cordray, I appreciate you sending out a survey to the community and the teachers and just getting some feedback. That makes it a lot easier from a board perspective.
I'm glad
because,
you gave credence to those of us that walked uphill both ways to school and get wet in waist deep snow.
Well, the funny thing is, if you looked at the addresses on the survey, I can only imagine, because some people live way out and it's much harder for them
Oh, yeah.
versus if you live in town. So there's got to be a disparity there, but that's not easy. Oof. No, thanks.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cordray. Now we have item C, dates for our summer retreat. I'll start that off. We had a discussion at our in our board work session about dates that we could possibly use for summer retreat. And we came up with some dates, but we're going to ask for some feedback from us, from our administrative team, because we're going to have them come to part of our retreat. I think our next step is to get some information out to our administrative team and see if they can put down some dates that they will be available, and see if we can match those dates with all the board members that we need present. Is there anyone else that'd like to add to that? Okay, so we are going to move on then to item D, DAC schedule and responsibilities.
And if you'd like, sir, I could address that. I think a lot of that was also covered in our district accountability report from the DAC president, Tigo Cruz. And I feel like a good place for that to go is just what was recommended, that the DAC president meets with 2 board members and the superintendent to evaluate DAC responsibilities for next year, and then bring a report back to the Board of Education.
Okay. That sounds great. It's a great summary. Okay, all right, we will now move on to item E. Plan to ask Sherry Wright to present to the board. I just want to clarify, Sherry Wright is our case regional representative. We have a desire as a board to meet with her and talk with her about what we feel are critical things that we want her to represent at the case state level. I think our discussion here is what are the items that we would want Sherry to talk about when she comes to the board, and when do we want Sherry to come to the board? And since I'm the case rep on this committee, I'll be glad to interface with Sherry once we could figure out dates and discussion items.
Well, I can start with the lowest hanging fruit, seems May, like, because April looks pretty crazy. So if she could accommodate us in May, that would be, we would be most grateful. And I don't know if it needs to be a work session or it needs to be, I think it's up to, I think to me, it would be a work session.
I don't see that we have any work sessions scheduled in May. Am I wrong on that?
We do May 8th and then before the meeting, May 15th.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what I
8th.
wanted to make sure I had something in mind.
So, I mean, either would be fine, maybe, give her the opportunity since she's,
To
Okay.
choose.
yeah, to choose. That would be
Okay.
nice.
And looking at the schedule too, it is a possibility that might need to be pushed till April. Because one of the major there are a variety of things
In May.
in May.
Okay, so maybe put it in April.
When I said April, I really meant to say August.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Push to
April's full
August.
too. Don't go back.
It's
Forward.
already a full night, yes.
Okay.
August, maybe.
Okay.
Well, then that would give us plenty of time to come up with some.
Unless she chose, are we having a board meeting in June?
Right. So I
I mean,
might
she
work
could
it.
choose June if she really wanted to.
Oh, let's do June.
So
be
she
the
could
best.
choose June,
Yeah,
That'll give us some
June or
time
August.
to
Yeah,
really
June might be
communicate.
great.
and is it possible that maybe each one of the board members could come up with something via email, and then we bring that, kind of just do the top 3 or the top 5? Kind of just for expediency, would that be okay?
Okay,
Okay, that'd be great. And if we can all kind of see what everybody is asking and then kind of narrow it down to the top 3 or 5, like you said.
Yeah, and then give that to her well in advance, so she could give, some,
So just from a timetable perspective, can we try to get that together before our next work session or through email?
sure.
Send an email.
Yes, if you do, yeah.
Okay. I can
Yeah, if
do
you
that.
could facilitate that via email, I
Yeah.
bet you we could come
yeah,
up
I
with some.
was gonna say, I will need probably a reminder.
Okay. Okay,
But I would, yeah, I think it would be great. I think it would be something that, in my mind, moving forward, that to have an annual conversation with her, I think would be really appropriate.
okay.
Yeah,
How often does that position change? How often does that elected position, does a rep
I
change?
don't remember if it's a 2 or 3 year term like
I think
that.
it's a 3-year
I
term,
think it
but
is.
she's on her,
Emily.
She's
done a couple terms.
Yeah,
has
I
she
think
not?
this is her last.
She is, yeah, she has made,
It's up for,
kind of clear to me that
Yeah.
she's pretty much gonna wrap it up.
yeah, she said that to me as well. So there'll be somebody new next year for sure.
Oh, yeah, I remember that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alright.
But whoever it is, I think an annual, that'll give us an opportunity to say some things.
Yeah.
That we can share with our rep so that they can represent us at the state level.
Right.
Okay. All right, if there's no more questions, I'm going to move on to F, policy review. Ms. Hutchison Brown, can you take this through this process?
Save the really exciting stuff for last. Actually, it's not that bad. I just want to point out a couple of different things. The policy work is extensive. I don't even know the number of how many policies we have, but it's several hundred. When we adopted the CASB core policy at the beginning of the year, the school year, we knew that we needed to go back and essentially review what we had with what we adopted. And we are now starting the exercise along with a schedule of review, which at this point takes us through August. I think it's August of 2024, don't quote me on that. By evaluating a certain chunk of those policies on a monthly basis. The evaluation will be in the format of a red line. I printed a colored cheat sheet for all of us because red lines are very confusing at first, but once you read through a few of them, you kind of get the hang of it. And so I really want us to pay attention to what the guts of the red line mean. So in the policies that we've shared this month and every month hereafter, red text with an underline is added text. That means CASB added that. It is different from what was in our old. It is actually added text. If there is blue strike through, that means it's taken out of what was in our old. So I've created a document in front of you that is a meshing or a blending of the old with the adopted new. Okay, so currently, the current core CASB policies are adopted and relevant. Therefore, if we want to make any change to what was old and what is now new, right? If we want to accept any of these changes, then we have to agree to accept the changes.
Right.
Okay, that's the important part. So this works to preserve some of those historical pieces of that old policy that was relevant to our district alone and was there for purpose and reason without losing that history. And thus, that is why it will take a period of time. There is a process. We are held to school policy BG, school board policy process. In that policy process, there are steps to take in reviewing of policy. Therefore, these policies will come up to the board for presentation first. Our starting next month, because we're a little bit behind, we will also be presenting to the DAC a policy that the same core set of policies plus a month ahead. We're going to give DAC 1 month ahead of time of the same policy to review so that they can then in written form provide the board their feedback on those policies, which is really one of the things that by law they are set to
One of their
do.
tasks.
Yeah, so they're gonna have a lot of, you asked for work, here it comes.
Go for it.
So they will be provided those policies 1 month in advance. It will be on them to then give that feedback to us in a relevant period of time. Again, it's good that we're presenting the policy. Then there is a first, so there's the first meeting, which is the presentation. The second meeting, which is presented for the first reading. And then the third meeting is the second reading and adoption. So it's 1, 2, 3 meetings long. And the way it's read is, the board shall adhere to the following procedure in formally considering and adopting policy proposals to ensure thoughtful examination of the issues prior to final adoption. 1, first meeting, the proposal shall be presented as an information item. That's why we're just giving it to you. 2, second meeting, the proposal shall be presented for a first reading, discussion, and first vote. 3, third meeting, the proposal shall be presented for a second reading, discussion, and final vote. So it's a accumulation of 3 separate meetings before a policy comes into full effect. And then also the views of the community and staff are a portion of that, which is where the DAC becomes involved. So that's our task at hand, which will take some time to get through. Also, I want to point out, you'll notice that in this month, there are a few policies kind of out of order because policies are A, B, C, D, etc. This month, we've got a G, we've got an I, and we've got another G. And that will happen as policies are brought forth for adaptation, that maybe they need to be adapted for some reason or another that Mr. Cordray sees fit. or recommends or asks for. And then also CASB sends out policy updates. They used to come quite often. We've only received 2 in this last year. So more than likely, in the month of May, maybe not next month, we'll see, either next month or May, we will get all of those CASB recommended additions or changes in one lump sum so that we can catch up from this year, because we haven't looked at that this year. So there will be quite a few out of order during that month. I will, Tim and I both have worked on this, and I've worked with Todd and I've worked with Heather, and we'll continue to work with Tigo and the DAC in order to try to get this to the board in a timely manner. It's a lot to read through. And I'm here if anybody has questions or if I can help, because again, reading red lines is hard to grasp, but once you get it, it becomes pretty simple. That's all I have. Tim, do you want to add anything?
No, this is the policy that came from CASB. That blue line is just emphasis.
That's just, yes, that's emphasis for you.
Because I was under the impression under regulations, you have your second reading and then you come to a third meeting where you do your final approval. That's always been the process in the past, and maybe that's not the requirement.
It can now be that your second reading
Right.
is your third meeting
Okay,
and approval happen at the
Okay,
same time.
I'm
So they call
fine.
the first one now presentation.
okay, I'm fine with that.
Gives you more time to read it,
Yeah.
I think.
A quick question. Some of the new additions in red underline are not necessarily from CASB, but from internal changes
Yes.
to the policy. And I think that's an important distinction to
Yeah.
make as well.
Ask that.
That these policies are, we are making attempts to make sure that they are fit our culture and our concerns.
The red will never be added by us. Okay, here's why. We compared the old adopted our policy with the new CASB adopted policy, okay?
Okay,
The only thing that will be affected that is ours is if it's blue and struck out.
blue and struck out.
Blue means it was ours to begin with, and it's being taken out. So our language from prior, meaning our school district specific language from prior years, will never show up red.
So, Emily, just for clarification, to be sure I'm here on what you're saying. So, for example, I mean, I have the same question. Is there any time that the district will put their own language in here that's not necessarily from the state, from CASB, or recommended from CASB or anything like that? Is there any other time that the district would say, look, we need to make this more of a make
Yes.
this district type of thing?
Very much so.
Absolutely.
And if that happens, will you have a different color for that?
It's gonna show up as blue.
Okay,
It will be blue and struck through. So if you're concerned about language being removed from policy, that blue language was language in our old policy that now the new CASB overwrote that.
Mhm.
So I would caution to pay more attention to the blue if you're worried about the policy that as it was written by our district
For
before.
us, yeah.
Okay,
We do
first-
spend a lot of time modifying a lot of policies over the course of years.
Correct.
To apply direct specifically to the Manco School District. And it doesn't necessarily line up with all the new CASB policies.
okay.
But
That's
really,
why-
I want you guys to really grasp this because I struggled with it myself and I'm doing the work. Again, old policy book, right? So I literally have the policy books on my desk and I started this process thinking I was gonna go through paper. And I realized we don't need to go through paper because we have our policy in Word doc as it was adopted for our district by boards of past in language, okay? That old policy, okay, was adapted with our own language or adopted with our own language. The new policy comes along and we just adopt it. Okay, so that's new language. When you blend those two documents together, any language that was in that first adopted policy that CASB's new policy overwrote shows up as a blue strike through.
Okay.
So that blue strike through was either language that we wrote that was removed, or it could be language that CASB rewrote and removed on their own. I don't have an easy way of noting that. So we do need to pay attention to that blue strike through.
Just look at it if it applies specific, there are
That-
places.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, but when I looked at IG curriculum development, there was red underlined strategic plan objectives. And that doesn't seem like CASB language, that seems like Mancus language.
Okay, there's two, okay, let me explain IG. There's two IGs.
Okay,
Okay, and here's why. The reason that there are two IGs is because there is a IG that is from the old our old policy to adopted CASB policy, right?
yes,
Then, that's the first change. Then we have already, Todd has already done the work to say, I'm gonna go rewrite this. Like he's ahead of us.
yeah.
So he rewrote the new.
And
So-
that's the one with the strategic plan with the red underline.
So
Okay,
I
I
had
did
to
see that.
go old to new
Okay,
and then new to newest new.
okay,
So the second one
okay,
is the one that we're really looking at, but I did that first version
For
to
history.
your point and your point of, well, what did Mancus have? What did we have in there? There's no way for us to tell what was in there unless I compared the original policy to the first CASB policy, then that first CASB policy to as Todd presented it
okay,
recently.
so that's a bit of an
Occasion-
anomaly.
It is, but I do believe, I believe we've caught them because they are those outliers here, which is GBEB-R.
Right.
IG and GBGH, the sick leave bank.
Okay.
Which we're actually finalizing tonight.
Okay,
So I don't think we'll have that again, but that is very confusing.
Yeah,
And that's the
I-
why behind it.
I think that, the only point is to just clarify how, who's making the changes, but the district really isn't, for the most part, making those changes unless they have to. And then you'll clarify that when that time
Absolutely.
comes.
Absolutely.
okay,
Okay,
So it can get confusing. Just bear with me. We'll get through it.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say. It's gonna be
Sounds
hours
good.
and hours of work.
If I could just add a word of comment, this is just exceptional work by Emily. I've seen districts try to do this again and again, and Emily's just doing exceptional work with this.
I am
Thank
so
you.
grateful because when you and I were gonna sit down with all that paper, I remember when I handed you my old policy book, it was like,
You owe me a beer.
because that's a lot of work. There's a lot involved.
It'll get
in
done.
that. I was not looking forward to.
And it needs to be done. It will make us a
all the
better
changes.
district.
This is a great methodology and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you, Emily. Okay, we'll move on if no one has any other questions.
No, we
Okay.
have all that for review. Again, we are voting on second reading final on our action items.
Okay. All right, we have on our agenda item number 11, the strategic plan, PBL objective report. The Board of Education is following a governance process that evaluates the Manco School District at every meeting through the strategic plan. This process ensures school district growth and focus on educational outcomes. Tonight's objective is 4B. Teachers will use student reflection and projects to document individual student goals, strengths, and areas for growth. So it's up for discussion. Adion, during our work session today, presented this objective to us. We had an opportunity to really have a meaningful and deeper discussion about it. She did a great report in our packets. And I just want to know if anybody has any other questions or anything they'd like to say about the subject.
No, I think we've decided that our board retreat, we're gonna get the administrative staff to go further into detail on this. And at that point in time, I'm forward to that discussion.
Okay.
I do think we also made a decision to possibly invite Mr. Whitner in April during a work session as one of the chief architects of the strategic plan, and then plus I believe that he has a experience in capstone projects, which were discussed, as well as the student profiles, digital profiles. So
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
It's a good summary of our discussion. Thank you. So if there's no other discussion, we're going to move on to a board action. And the board action is to accept the objective report. Now, I want to ask a question before I move forward. This one says 4A. Should it say 4B?
No, it's 4A.
No, it's 4A.
The monitoring.
We were just discussing 4A. We discussed our 4A last time
So we're moving 4A into this meeting for
for
acceptance.
acceptance.
Okay, all right.
And
So
so I
let me
would,
read that. Objective 4A, teachers and students will utilize, that's it, yeah. You will utilize student assessment data to develop and implement individualized student learning plans. Manco students will demonstrate mastery and/or positive longitudinal growth in reading and math by the end of third grade. All teachers will encourage an interest and a love of reading throughout the student's academic career growth.
and I would move that we approve objective 4A as approaching standard.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. I have a motion to approve and I have a second. Chrissy, would you call the roll?
Yes, Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Aye.
Katie Cahill Volpe,
Aye.
and Tim Hunter.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0. Okay, so we have an opportunity for consent motion.
Can make a motion on that.
Okay,
That we would accept as consent A, B, C, D, E, G, and G, and exclude F for
okay.
reading.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Chrissy, would you please call roll?
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Aye.
Katie Cahill Volpe,
Aye.
and Tim Hunter.
Aye.
So the motion passes 4-0. Now, we will bring up F into our discussion.
So I will read the proclamation of the Week of the Young Child that the board wishes to read in full and then make a motion on. Manco School District proclamation of the Week of the Young Child. My apologies. Whereas the Manco Early Learning Center, in conjunction with the National Association for the Education of Young Children, is celebrating the Week of the Young Child, April 1st through the 7th, 2023. And whereas by calling attention to the need for high quality early childhood services for all children and families within the town of Manco, Colorado, these organizations work to improve the quality and availability of such services. And whereas early childhood professionals who work with or on behalf of young children make a difference throughout our communities, and their efforts warrant thanks and recognition. And whereas public policies that support early learning for all young children are crucial to young children's futures and to the prosperity of our society. Now therefore, the Manco Board of Education does hereby proclaim April 3rd through the 7th, 2023 as the Week of the Young Child, and encourages all citizens to support and invest in early childhood in Manco, Colorado.
I move we approve proclamation for the Week of the Young Child.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Chrissy, would you go?
Yep, Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Emily Hutchinson Brown,
Aye.
Katie Cahill Volpe,
Aye.
and Tim Hunter.
Okay, we have 4-0. The motion passes. Okay, item number 15, item number 15, public participation. We have a request to talk to the board. Angela Saylor.
It's like Popeye, only not spelled the same.
The most patient.
Thank you,
of
please.
the
I know, right?
audience
You guys are
members.
gold
All the
stars.
ones to do.
Please come forward.
Okay. I'm here as a member of the Manco Library Board, And in our processes of reviewing our policies, we came across a policy that I think, so from what I understand, this is from what I understand. Jared, our new executive director, had sent the school board a letter letting them know about this policy. And we just hadn't heard anything back, so we just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of it. And it's essentially a policy that says that we as the library have two governance, the school board and the town of Manco. And with that, we need to have two members of both the school board and the town on a committee. And that committee should appoint the board of trustees for the Manco Library District. So, and the last time this was done, 2006, I think was when Jared said. So I have a copy of Jared's letter. I have a list of all of the current board members. And then I also have a copy of this resolution that's actually in this resolution. I don't know if it's a date. I don't even know how to read that.
It's a resolution or policy.
Was that our board resolution for?
Yes,
Is it an
it's a
old-
resolution
Library
establishing
library
the Manco
record.
Library District,
That was-
1986.
That was like way after.
I was
and
9.
state stuff.
I don't, this is not compliance for that.
So you're saying, Angela, that when you guys go to decide on new director for the library, that you need to have a committee that involves at least two school board members?
Yeah,
Is
not
that what I heard?
the board.
The board of the library,
Yeah, not the
not the
director.
executive
Oh,
director,
okay,
the
for-
board.
Yeah.
For determining board members, okay.
Yeah, and so we had this discussion about, well, nothing's been done since that last time, so let's just let it be. But then there's also the discussion of, we need to address this and make sure that the school board and the town is aware that this is part of their policy already.
So are you vetting new board members right now?
Well, since it was last done by this resolution, there have been many board members that have been elected. and have been-
When's
so
your next election?
Maybe a couple years. Yeah, I think everybody, because Connie and I came on new just this last year. And we have term Stephanie, Miriam. Yeah, I would say at least another year before we will be getting a new board member.
Okay,
So my assumption is that you guys would come to us for that at that
Right.
point.
Right. But in this policy, it says the committee, which consists of two school board and two people from the town, will appoint the board. So we would come to you with a suggestion, and then you would in turn say, yes, no. Does that make sense? I mean, am I reading that correctly? Because we're all still trying to figure this out.
can I see your,
I mean, do you have to have this policy for the state? Or?
This is
Just
just
your
a policy
bylaws.
that we had, and that nobody had really done anything about.
Well, I guess my question is it a policy you should keep?
It is, so
Do you have to keep it, I guess is my question.
I think since we are not just the Manco Library by ourselves,
I see.
we are like part of like just the town and essentially the middle school and high school library as well.
Mm.
So there is a need for the school board to be
Involvement.
aware,
Okay,
yeah,
makes
of
sense.
who's making school library decisions.
How long does your board members, how long is their term?
It's anywhere between 2 to 4 years, and it's just something, and I don't have that information on who's
well,
term.
this is establishing the district, which is a legal document for establishing a tax district that allows for the library to have mill levies and charge This is an act, it's basically an act of law at this point in time.
Okay.
This is a regulatory compliance issue, and that is the regulation.
Okay.
Because this is adapted to establish the library district.
Hmm.
It wasn't just to establish the library, it was to establish the taxing district.
Okay.
And as a district, as a taxing district, that's why the town and the school have ultimate authority, because we are elected officials.
So we don't need to do anything retroactively.
No, not
It's a
retroactive.
moving forward.
Right, and I have, like I said, I have a list of our current board members, and you can keep that, I mean, like, and just so you're aware of who's making the decisions at the library, but moving forward, yeah.
So moving forward, you would like to have a school board member on a committee or on the board?
On the
It's on a
committee.
committee. It's
Right.
the school board, the school.
Oh, the committee to elect the
The
board.
school and the town appoint the directors for the library,
Hmm.
the board of directors, which has not been happening, but that's what the establishment documentation is about.
And isn't it 2 board members or 1 board member?
Two.
Two says
It
2
says
board
two.
members, and 2 town board, 2 town members.
Okay.
I have a meeting scheduled with Mr. Boudreau on the 31st, so I'll seek kind of explicit directions for how best for that to be operationalized.
Perfect, yeah, yeah.
Is that, like I say, it's part of the taxing district, and it's
law.
it's a matter of it's a matter of legality.
Yeah, absolutely, since we are technically part of the school. That's all I have.
Angela, thank you for
I have,
bringing that.
I can leave all of this with you guys. You're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention.
And also, I talked to Ed at the gas station, and we're gonna meet, and he's gonna start giving us books that he needs. And we're gonna start carting books over, and creating space and getting books over in the middle school and the high school. So that's in play.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. We have item 16, future agenda items. Does anyone have future agenda items they'd like to add?
Nothing further to add.
I do have a question for you guys. I was at the by invitation, the MTSS, recent meeting. And it brought up a question in my mind, is that something when we have, board members go and to these meetings? Or do, you did, a whole school walk around? Is that something that we need to report back on?
I think it's helpful because just, I mean, knowing that, oh, you were a part of this because I wanted to see what that was about, but I didn't get to see that. Or you were in the elementary school and I haven't been in the elementary school in, 2 months because I've been over in the middle school. Or, I mean, I'm engaged in the school because I have a child in the school, but that's a different engagement. It's, when you walk in as a parent, like I went to the open house on Thursday as a parent, but I stayed for 2 hours because I'm a board member, right? And you talk to everybody, not just your kiddos' teachers. And the open house was tremendous, by the way, and it was great to see everybody there. I would love to hear about it, just because I think it helps all of us be aware of what we're doing and what we're seeing,
Well, and
even
it
if you're
really,
sitting in classrooms.
well, and it speaks to the intention of what we're doing, why we're there. Like, why are we there? And then if it is to get information, then why would we not bring that back to the board?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, so, if you, it sounds like we have an MTSS. Do we have that, like, a second, next presentation?
Oh, in May, we do.
In May, okay, so I don't know if I need to, bring back anything now, but maybe for the future. I just will say that it was fascinating
Oh, that's.
in a very long and involved way. And it was very interesting because as an observer, I wasn't really able to participate until the very end, because I was like, there were a couple of questions that really were board or what is the elements that were talking about communication to the board, that I couldn't really say anything about. But it was very, very interesting, and it seems like a very powerful tool. So I look forward to that in May.
Cool.
Okay, great.
Anything else?
Okay, so does anyone have anything for the good of the order before we adjourn?
Oh, one last thing, I'm sorry, but the year of the child, April is, or the month of, or the week of the, what is it?
Month of, week of the child. Sorry, the week of the child. Week of the young child.
Can Mr. Cordray please ask if there is a special event that she would like the board members to be at? I read her report again to see if there was a specific date, but it was really the week.
Right.
And so I just, we would certainly want to
Yeah, that's
be there in support of that.
good thinking.
That's it.
Okay. All right, and we are adjourned.